In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is Drew Hill, joined as always by Chris Herrington. We are coming to you after a Grizzlies loss to the Sacramento Kings on Monday night. So we'll have that to talk about. We have draft stuff to talk about. We have our Tankathon simulation to run, which we're going to do from now all the way up until the NBA draft lottery in May. So we have quite a bit to get to, maybe a little bit more to get to than normal at this point in the season, at this stage in the Grizzlies season. But I did want to start, Chris, with a topic that I know you'll just be so delighted to talk about. And this is a joke, so don't crush me. Memphis hotels. Memphis hotels. I just know that you were just shaking your fist at the Anthony Edwards comments about Memphis hotels.
Yeah, I am not on high alert for any if anyone says anything bad about Memphis, you gotta call in the banners and go to war kind of thing. It's, to me, it's the opposite side of the coin of, oh my God, they said something nice about us. I both of those things have sort of gotten on my nerves for more than a decade at this point. I don't think it's healthy for the city. It
was a joke interview. It was a comedy interview.
Yeah, I was trying to do a thing. There's a reality where Memphis is one of the smallest markets in the league. And maybe some people don't want to hear this, but unlike New Orleans, it's not a major tourist city. Not in the same way that New Orleans is, right? And so New Orleans is such a major tourist city that for whatever other problems the city has, like their hotel situation's probably better,
New Orleans has hosted Super Bowls.
This is my point. This is my point, right? And so, I think it's truer that the smaller the market and less touristy the market is, the less, the hotel situation is probably not going to be as good as in bigger cities or more touristy cities. That's probably just true. I think so. There's that to it. And then this is not the first time NBA players have complained about hotels in Memphis, by the way. This goes back. And so at some level, though, it's also about whatever chains own the hotels, get your stuff together, right?
Yeah. No, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but it is a subject on the internet. I mean, look, I can't speak for the cleanliness of Memphis hotels because I'm not staying in Memphis hotels, but yeah, it's a smaller market. The hotels aren't going to be some massive 5-star thing. They're not going to be as nice as New York or
Here's the one
Miami.
thing about that. When people bring this up in conjunction with free agency or players wanting to be in Memphis, if you play for the Grizzlies, you're not staying in Memphis hotels.
Right. You got your own house. You got your own spot. Yeah.
That's right.
I don't know. I'm not offended. I'm choosing not to be offended.
Yep.
By the comments, but it is all over the internet. Now, I thought I might stir you up first, might create a little bit more. A little bit of a better pod if I just got you going right there at the beginning. I know you've long shared your thoughts on this sort of thing. And I'm with you.
Only when asked.
Okay, Grizzlies versus Kings. The Grizzlies. I want to keep joking and be like they did it. They out tanked the Sacramento Kings. They've done the impossible. But honestly, yeah, there were guys not available in that game, but I felt like they had the better team on the floor, although they were clearly, they didn't have a big. But I still thought the Grizzlies were probably going to win that game against Sacramento. They did not. Russell Westbrook,
I don't know, man. I mean, Keegan Murray played in that game. DeMar DeRozan played in that game. Westbrook played in that game. Malik Monk played in that game. So I don't know. I don't know that the Grizzlies had the better team on the floor, talent-wise. The Kings are so far gone that they can afford to win some games, though.
I know. When you lose 16 in a row, at some point you just become desperate to just stop losing.
Right.
It felt like that. It felt like watching in the second half, you were seeing a team that was desperate to stop being the butt of the jokes, at least for a day.
I think it's probably a useful loss for the Grizzlies, not so much in trying to catch up with the Kings, which they won't do. They won't catch the Kings in the tank race. But I'm worried. I'm more worried about the Grizzlies getting caught from behind in the tank race and the Grizzlies catching up with teams in the tank race. I don't know if you saw this. ESPN had a story today on the the teams in the lottery race or what have you, and their projections for the rest of the season. The Grizzlies, as of right now, would be eighth pre-lottery. That's where they're currently slotted. ESPN's projections have the Grizzlies finishing ninth pre-lottery, with the Bulls passing them. Bulls have lost 9 in a row. Grizzlies are 2 games up, if you want to look at it that way, on the Bulls in the lottery race. The Bulls are coming, man.
I am not going to read that. I did see that. I'm choosing not to read that because I think that
I've now told you all you need to know. You don't need to read it.
okay, good. Because I think I will myself take a look this week at some point at the tank race and try to figure out how I feel about it and where I think it may shake out and go through some of those teams and just see, I think a big thing if you're looking towards the end of the regular season is just like, and I haven't done the math on this, I plan to, is to just look at the number of potential wins remaining on the schedule for each team. Um, and so it just gets so, like March basketball in the NBA just gets so bizarre, that it's hard to really know. But, when the Grizzlies are going up against the Kings or the Bulls or, another team that's in this race to the bottom, those are all games that are going to be circled as winnable. And I think the number of those games that exist on the schedule for you really can determine how this thing shakes out. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to count each of those games for each of the teams, and take a look at, some of the potential teams that the Grizzlies could pass or be passed by in this race to the bottom. So,
Well, one of the complications of the scoreboard watching, given where the Grizzlies are now, is they have those 2 picks in the first round, and there are games. Or actually, we're recording this. What's today? Tuesday. We're recording this on Tuesday morning. There are actually 3 games tonight, Tuesday night on the NBA schedule, that one outcome is helpful to the Grizzlies' first Grizzlies' own pick, within the top 10. But the other outcome of the game would be helpful to the Grizzlies' second pick, will be the Orlando or Phoenix pick. So you got 3 games tonight. You have the Hornets at the Bulls. You want the Bulls to win if you're focused on the Grizzlies pick. But the Hornets winning is helpful if you want them to catch the Magic and push that Magic pick down. And then you have the Heat at Bucks. You want the Bucks to win, to try to keep them from catching the Grizzlies for their own pick. But you want the Heat to win if you want the Heat to catch the Magic. And then you have Warriors at Pelicans, and you want Pelicans to win if you want to try to catch the Pelicans with the Grizzlies' own pick, but you want the Warriors to win to try to pass the Suns. And so you really have to be hyper strategic to figure out what you're actually rooting for in those games. My personal decision, I'm rooting for the Bulls because I'm worried about the Bulls. But then I'm rooting for the Pelicans because I'm holding out hope that the Pelicans go on a winning streak. But I'm rooting for the Heat. I want the Heat to pass the Magic. They're tied basically in the standings right now.
yeah. And then there's Phoenix, which is also a little bit of an interesting situation
Yeah,
too.
they're at home against the Celtics tonight. That's a good opportunity for the Suns to lose double game. That's a clear, you're rooting for the Celtics in that game.
Yes, the Suns are interesting because you have the Steph Curry injury now, which I
Right.
mean, so if you were kind of hoping that maybe Golden State could pass Phoenix and make them play on the road in the 7-8, and maybe that could give you a little bit more of a chance. And then, you should be cheering for the Lakers and for Minnesota because you want the Suns in the play-in tournament, obviously. And
Yeah.
Phoenix has a really weird schedule in March. Like they have a ton of games against tanking teams that feel like they're almost automatic wins for the Suns, even with their Dylan Brooks injury and the stuff they got going on. But then you also have some tough games in March. They don't play a lot of the play-in type teams. It's a lot of the top of the West and the top of the East and then the very bottom of the conference. So March will be interesting. I'm just looking at the Suns' March schedule right now. They got the Kings, the Bulls, the Pelicans. Ugh. You got the Hornets, the Bucks, Bucks tanking team, Pacers tanking team, but you also have the Celtics, the Timberwolves, the Spurs, the Raptors, the Nuggets, the Magic. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. But the hope is that the Suns still end up in that play-in tournament. They're gonna stack up some wins here in March. So you need those other teams in front of them to win some games.
Yeah, the Lakers at home tonight in the late game against the Magic. And so as much as it may be counterintuitive for a Grizzlies fan to ever root for the Lakers, this is the night. This is the night you root for the Lakers.
Yes, this is definitely the night. Okay, back to Grizzlies and Kings real quick.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a strange game, I thought,
Yeah.
to watch for a number of different reasons. Got our first look at Ryan Rupert, who the Grizzlies signed, and I don't mean to laugh.
I think it's Rupert.
Oh, yeah, Rupert, that's right, French.
Yeah.
My high school French teacher would be upset at me. Um, yeah, no, I think that it was definitely a bizarre game. Like the Grizzlies signing Rupert, another guard to the roster, I found to be, I don't know, interesting. I guess they
Hey,
can just take a look at whoever they want, but
it
like
worked. It worked, man. Preston Chachua had like 7 offensive rebounds in that game.
I know the jokes are just they write themselves. It's just too
That's
easy.
that's not a
But like
joke. That's just straight facts, homie.
they're absent of a big. You had in that game probably the weirdest stat line of the season from Scottie Pippen Jr.
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
Grizzlies. 0 for 8 from the field with 5 steals, all on consecutive possessions in the second quarter, which was hilarious. Like
Well,
that was
four of them, literally four straight. Because the first steal came early in the first, but 4 straight possessions, literally 4 straight possessions. He stole the ball from Malik Monk. That's amazing stuff.
I know. And so that was funny. He also had 7 turnovers, so he definitely counterbalanced the
Yeah, yeah.
steals there.
He was doing stuff.
And he had the 7 turnovers and I believe 8 assists and
Yeah.
5 steals and went 0 for 8 from the floor. And like even he after the game, I asked him about it, and even he was like, "Yeah, that was one of the weirder games. Like that was just kind of bizarre."
He was, if he had only grabbed some more rebounds, it would have been like a Draymond Green kind of night. Draymond Green just put up those stat lines. I think he had a triple double with turnovers and steals in some game against the Grizzlies one time.
So the Kings pull away late. They get the win. I think we can leave it at that. I mean, G.G. Jackson had 16. Javon Small played well. He's played well in a few games now. Um,
It'll
I
be
do like
interesting
what we're
to,
seeing from Gigi right now, for sure. I mean,
yeah, no, he has something we talked about last week. Like, do you maintain the discipline and the things that have gotten you back on track? And he's done it. Like, he's taking good shots. He's playing hard. 16 points on 12 field goal attempts, 3 or 4 from three, 6 rebounds in 26 minutes. Small, it's probably the best game Javon Small has ever played to this point. Early in his career as a rookie two way. It'd be interesting to see what happens with the Grizzlies two way guys, because all three of their two way guys, I think, have shown interesting stuff in terms of having NBA futures. But I don't think any of them have been like oh my God, we got to lock this guy up, kind of thing. So it's kind of an interesting spot with all three of those guys.
yeah, for sure. On Gigi again, real quick. I asked him about because this reminds me a little bit more of that 23-24 season, his rookie season when he was putting up pretty big scoring outputs, but it was mostly empty in terms of wins. What I like about this is that it's also coming with some of the other stuff, like more rebounding, a little bit better defense.
Yeah,
And I asked him, for him, because the story for Gigi in his career has been this guy with immense talent that sometimes you wonder about the focus a little bit.
right.
And that's something that the coaches have pointed out. That's something Gigi Jackson himself has acknowledged. And he said last night, yeah, it's good to get back to scoring. I'm not gonna lie. Like that's been the type of player I've been my whole life. Is I've been the guy that puts the ball in the basket, so it kind of helps him find his identity a little bit more when he is on the court and he is scoring. But he said this time around, I want to do it with more balance, right? I want to be able to do it with some of the other stuff too, not just the scoring. So yes, the scoring for me does sort of elevate my self-worth, the way I think about how I'm playing, because that's how I've judged myself my entire life. But I think the balance now is more important, and I think that shows some maturity from Gigi to say that. So I thought that was good. I mean, he was definitely one of the best performers in the game last night, which was a loss, probably a productive loss for the Memphis Grizzlies. I did talk to, and I think that this story kind of underlines what sucks about the NBA tanking stuff. And you wrote a column about this, so I wanted to get into this.
Yep.
There were two fans I met at the game last night who flew 24 hours from Israel to come see Ja Morant and watch the Grizzlies play. And they bought the tickets earlier in the season. It was a 14-year-old kid and his dad. And the kid was so excited to be there. And so I'm glad that the situation with the teams didn't take away fully from the experience, but it does kind of underline why this sucks, right? Because we saw the
Well,
Grizzlies on the global stage, and like we know that they have pull to bring people to the city and do things, and like I do feel kind of bad for them that it feels like they were deprived of what could have been in that
well,
situation.
I mean, I think tanking is bad for the product and bad for paying customers, period. I agree with that. But the situation of someone traveling to see John Morant, not seeing John Morant, that's not really
Well,
necessarily about tanking. That's been happening for a few years.
I understand that, but there's also like there's no Jaron, there's no Cedric
Yeah,
Howard, there's no Zach Edey.
right,
Like it is a who's who of who's on the floor at times.
right.
And so I and this goes for season ticket holders too. So I'm not like trying to ignore the folks that live here that pay top dollar to go to all these games and like feel like, they lost the value of that when the team decided that they were going to shift in a rebuilding direction. But I do think this underlines part of the problem
Yep.
with tanking in the NBA is that you have fans that are willing to do that, to travel 24 hours to come to a basketball game, that have planned a whole trip around a basketball game. And here we are in late February, maybe earlier than we would usually see this type of NBA basketball. And this is already happening. And so, if you're wanting to know why it's been made such a big deal, like over the last few weeks, and why Adam Silver's talking about it and all, it's that. It's because this affects the dollar, right, for the NBA. When this is the product that's on the floor, especially at this point in the season. So it's something that has to be addressed, it feels like, at this point. And you wrote a column this week about it. Just walk us through your column with your idea for trying to
Yeah, I
clean
mean,
up some of the tanking.
my proposal is pretty simple, and it's sort of towards the end of a longer column, and I sort of went through like what's actually happening. What's actually happening is more important than what I think should happen because they don't take my advice. But there was at the All-Star break, Silver addressed this publicly. It was pretty forceful that this is going to change. It's not going to change this season. Can't change rules midstream, so it is what it is for the next few months. But they're going to make changes this summer. He followed it up with a conference call with the 30 GMs or lead basketball decision makers, of all the teams. Zach Lyman was on that conference call along with the other 29 people and who have his job for other teams. And the Athletic reported on that. They got some notes from some of the people on the call. I linked to that in the story, and Silver was very clear that like it or not, changes are coming and they're coming this summer. So I think a lot of people around the league are working on this now to figure out what those changes will be. ESPN put out a story that with a laundry list of like potential things that might happen. They're not all going to happen. It's just a list of like 8 or 9 different things that could happen. A lot of people have been writing about different ideas. I'll link to some of those. Tim Bontemps wrote about an idea that's been proposed. John Hollinger wrote about an idea that's been proposed. And I just got down to what I think they should do. And my goals are threefold. One, I want to preserve the draft, which is going to happen. There are some proposals to get rid of the draft. The NBA has basically said we're not doing that, and I don't think they should. Drafts are fun, man. We like mock drafts. We like clicking the tankathon button. We don't like tanking, but we like clicking the button and seeing what happens. We like doing mock drafts. We like watching the draft. It's a TV show. Drafts are fun. So I want to preserve the draft. I want to get rid of the incentives that artificially impact the way teams approach games, right? The biggest problem is incentive to lose, and that's why you have this tanking, because the losing itself can be productive to your draft odds. There are people who want to create other incentives that incentivize winning, where you get like winning a game can help your lottery odds, not losing a game, right? There's a lot of people are attracted to that idea, and I think it sounds good. I actually don't like that because I think that creates other artificial incentives. And now if you're a naturally rebuilding team, you're a young team that's rebuilding, but if you win this game, you get better lottery odds, you might, play your, DeMar DeRozan's more than your Nick Clifford's, or imagine that kind of scenario, right? Where you're shortchanging developmental time for players that matter to your future because you're trying to win the game for draft purposes. I believe that the draft incentive should be taken out of the games completely to the degree possible, and you let teams just approach the games honestly with no extra incentives either way, like what's best for your basketball team, right? And so my proposal is a 22-team lottery, or 24 after expansion. Basically, every team that doesn't every team that doesn't make the second round of the playoffs. Because the Dallas Mavericks showed us last year that a team will choose to miss the playoffs in order to be one of 14 teams with the chance to get a top pick in a draft. That happened. So we know the incentive to potentially get a top pick is greater than the incentive to be a likely loser of a first-round playoff series. That's been proven. I don't think there's any NBA team that would prefer to lose a playoff series to be one of 22 teams with a chance at a pick. So I think that is the line where the incentives flip in terms of all that. So you make it 22 teams, every team that doesn't advance in the playoffs, and you make it, my idea is flat. It could be flatter or flattish, but my idea is flat. 22 teams, all the odds are the same. And then the question is, how many picks do you draw? I think it's more than 4.
That's the question for me.
It's not 22, but to me, it's more than 4. Maybe it's 6, maybe it's 8, maybe it's 10, that 6 to 10 range. My guess is that the NBA will do something like that, but won't go that far. I think it will expand maybe from all the teams that miss the playoffs to including the teams that make the play in, right? They might do that, and you add 4 more teams to it, and then you flatten the odds. There's other stuff the NBA has suggested that I think are bad ideas. Some of them sound good, but I think the actual outcomes would be bad. There's the thing about, one of the ideas was lottery odds are based on a 2-year record. To me, you're encouraging teams to tank for 2 full years if they know a Wemby draft's coming up. I don't like that. There's the stuff about preventing teams from having top 4 picks in consecutive years. I like the idea of that, but to me, you create other gamesmanship, because if the Zachary Ricochet draft is followed by the Wemby draft, and people who work for teams can see out and see that on the horizon, they start manipulating things to make sure they're bad the right year for the right draft, that kind of stuff. I would just like to divorce the draft stuff from the gameplay as much as possible, without creating situations where the best teams are going to get the top picks.
I do think that would be a good system, and I agree. I want to throw a hypothetical out there that I've thought about a little bit. Obviously, this is not what they're going to do, so don't take this as me floating an idea. This is not that. I wonder if you just went worst to first,
right,
in the draft order, and you had no lottery, which is a TV product, right? So the league doesn't want to get rid of it. I wonder if you'd have teams tank for sure, but I wonder to the extent if it would lessen the extent that teams are willing to really try to be bad at the end of the season, because teams that like the Grizzlies would know at this point that they've got little chance in most drafts. This is a little bit of a different situation,
right? I think it would be worse. I think it'd be worse at the bottom end during the good drafts, because if like Wemby's sitting there, you'd be trying to go 0-82 to get Wemby, right?
Right.
And then the other thing is that drafts are not just about the number 1 pick. It varies draft to draft. I think this draft, people initially saw a gap from 3 to 4. I think now people are seeing maybe it's more 4 to 5. But they're also seeing a situation, and I think this really pertains to the Grizzlies right now. I'm trying to figure out, Like who's 8, 9, 10 in this draft? Because if you get into that 6, 7, 8, you have this group of guards people are super excited about, these freshman guards. But what happens when those guys are off the board? If the Grizzlies are picking 9 and 10, and like Flemings and Acuff and Wagler and Michael Brown Jr. Michael Brown Jr. all off the board, I don't know, man. Is it Nate Ament? Is it Braylon Mullins? Is it Yaxel Lindenberg? Are you excited about those guys? So I think in that case, there's incentive because there's no lottery. You can ensure if you hit a certain record, you'll get the 7th pick, and now you're in that range. Whereas if you get the 8th, you're in the other range. So I think that would create more problems. I just think in basketball, individual players are so important that the incentives to control your draft status, when you can, are so strong, much stronger than in other sports.
Yeah, it's not anything groundbreaking to say that the influence of a single player in basketball is much higher than
Yeah.
the influence of a single player in like the NFL. Although I do think, as I said, yes, it would be worse at the bottom, but I don't know if it would be as bad in the middle. There might be a cutoff, but if you're not close to that cutoff,
Well,
it doesn't.
one of the things I think they are going to do, and it's pretty clear this is going to happen, is they're going to limit the pick protections you can put on picks that you trade. And so the situation you have with Utah this season, where they keep their pick if it's top 8, but they lose it if it's outside the top 8, and now you're trying to game to make sure it's not even about trying to get the number 1, number 2 pick, which you'd like to have, but it's really to make sure you keep the pick. Period. I think they're going to try to get rid of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, Nurkic headed for season-ending nose surgery.
Yes.
That's
Nurkic's nose, KCP's pinky. There's a fantasy team name for you for next season, guys. KCP's
yeah,
pinky.
they exist. They exist out there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to our draft conversations. But first, let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
Okay, Chris, are you ready to run the simulation before we get into our college basketball updates?
I am. I'd rather just keep mine from last week, but I guess we got to do it again.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Set, go.
Should we do mine first since yours is apparently better?
Mine is definitely better, but my page is right here. Okay.
Okay.
I know I have you beat this week.
Yeah, mine's no good. I mean, it could be worse in terms of who gets the picks, but I got Brooklyn jumping up. I'll just do the top 4 and then where the Grizzlies are. I got Brooklyn jumping up for the first overall pick. I got Sacramento falling a spot and getting the 2nd pick. I got Charlotte jumping up 8 spots to get the 3rd pick. And this is a good illustration of what I'm talking about pushing the Orlando Magic or the Phoenix Suns out of the lottery. Like Orlando could be in that Charlotte spot, right? And now you can jump up 8 spots and get a top 4 pick. You probably won't, but you could. Charlotte, I got 3rd. I got Utah 4th. I got the Grizzlies dropping a spot to 9th, which again was what I was talking about before. If they're picking 9th, which is very realistic, who you want at 9. So what do you got?
I have my best draft yet. I have the Bulls jumping up 8 spots to the number 1 overall pick in the draft.
Derrick Rose Redux. Yeah.
They have the mock draft on Tankathon has them taking Darren Peterson number 1 overall. Number 2, the Indiana Pacers taking Cam Boozer. Number 3, the Memphis Grizzlies jumping up 5 spots and landing AJ Demansa. So obviously that would be the best case scenario. I think that's all you could ever ask for if you're a Grizzlies fan.
Who's at 4?
At number 4, you have the Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, it's great. So you got Eastern Conference and then the Grizzlies at 3. We'll take it. That's even better than mine last week.
Yeah. So that's about as good as you can do in the Tankathon simulation. So that was definitely our best one yet. Some college basketball updates real quick. You did have a Houston versus Kansas game last night. You also had Louisville in action against North Carolina. Kingston Fleming, 16 points, 6 for 18 shooting. That's a guy some people may be interested in. So not his most productive game, And then
He was only good. I watched the Houston Arizona game over the weekend. Houston lost at home to Arizona. Two losses in a row there for Houston against some good teams. Flemings was good in the Arizona game. He wasn't great.
yeah, and then on the other side, Kansas, who gets the win. Bill Self now 41 and 0 on Big Monday in college basketball, which is just an insane stat, or maybe 40 and 0. And then Darren Peterson, not his best game, 5 for 14 from the floor, 2 for 7 from three, 4 rebounds. He had an interview after the game where he kind of talked about being a loner and being quiet and, you know, kind of sitting with all the criticism on his own. And like it gave me big time jaw vibes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work for teams in the top four, or maybe not four. We'll see. There's a lot of work for teams that jump up in the lottery are going to have to do on him, both in terms of the medicals and figure out what's been going on with him physically, and in terms of everything else. There's just a lot of work. There's a lot of work to do on him. He's obviously very talented, but there's a lot of stuff for NBA teams they're going to have to dig into and make some decisions about.
If you had a top two pick, we'll say two, because there's two other players clearly in this mix in the top three. Are you, is this scaring you off of Darren Peterson at this point?
Well, a little bit because I don't think I said this. I did a spot on. I'm doing a weekly spot on with Jeffrey Wright on Mondays now, and he sort of asked me a little bit about this. And my thing is that it's not like it's clear to me that even if you remove all the questions, Darren Peterson is obviously better than these other guys in this top group, right? And that's not clear to me. He might be, but it's I don't see him as some like prospect that's a head above Boozer, DeBanza, or Caleb Wilson, right? I think they're all sort of in a cohort with each other. And so, given how much I think about the other players and given the issues with Peterson, yeah, I mean, right now I'm sort of leaning Boozer. It's a journey of discovery. My opinions may change by the time we get there. But like, I just think Boozer looks like incredibly safe to the degree that you could ever be safe. He's incredibly safe to be a very, very high level NBA player.
Yeah,
Very high level.
that's why I think as of now, I'm also reserving the right to change opinions. But as of now, I think he's the number one player for me. It's just because it's so steady on a night
Yeah.
to night basis. And Duke took down Michigan this weekend, 68-63. I love, side note on college basketball. I mean, I just love that some of these teams are willing to take that type of game, in late February on a neutral site, two really good teams up against each other. It's like a NCAA tournament preview in that sense, and two of the top teams in the country. Duke's the new number one team after beating Michigan. And Cam Boozer showed up. I mean, he was efficient
Yeah.
like he always is. 10 rebounds, 18 points, 6 for 10 shooting from the floor with 7 assists and 2 blocks. I mean, that's really daggone good against a Michigan front court that's very good and includes another NBA draft prospect in Yaxel Lendenborg and several actually on that
Yeah.
Michigan team.
The whole
Um,
front line. Yeah.
yeah.
And then you look at the other guys. AJ DeManza's been putting up crazy numbers all
Yeah,
year.
well, see, that's the thing. My
He just
hesitation is not Peterson; it's Debanza. Like
yeah,
he's been so good too.
and he just had maybe his best game of the year. I can't remember who they were playing, but he had like the 9 assists or whatever in that game.
They played Iowa
Um,
State. They got a big win
that's
over
right,
Iowa
Iowa
State.
State. Iowa State, who I'd watched play Kansas, and they swallowed up Peterson. He just had a huge game against Iowa State. And then Wilson's a little out of sight, out of mind because he hurt his hand. But the thing I was talking about a couple weeks ago about box plus minus for true freshmen, he's the guy who's right after Boozer. He's ahead of DeBanza and Peterson on that. And for me, stylistically, I just love his game and I love his fit with the Grizzlies. So like, it's not clear to me that Peterson, even when I've seen the good version of Peterson, I don't leap to like this guy's the next Kobe Bryant. I leap more to like this guy's like young Ray Allen, which is an awesome player, by the way. But it's to me, it's not like some separate category from these other three guys.
Yeah, Debanza against Iowa State in a 79-69 win. 10 for 17 from the floor, 2 for 4 from three, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, only 2 turnovers. I mean, he has been really good as of late. I could eventually see me getting to a point where I think he's the number one player in the class. And honestly, I do think that maybe Cam Boozer's the most solid, but I could see Debanza having the higher ceiling of the
Oh,
two
yeah,
players.
definitely. No, the Boozer case is partly you don't want to shortchange his ceiling by saying he's high floor because you can be both, right? But he's just incredibly high floor to me.
Yeah, and Debanza, when I watch him too, it's not like he's overly skinny, but he's still very skinny. And I'm like, man, if that guy fills out in the NBA, he's gonna be a problem. So I could see myself flipping on that, but I those two guys have been really fun to watch as of late. And then there was another guy who didn't play his best game against BYU, but Joshua Jefferson's a player that intrigues me. I know I've mentioned his name several times on the Iowa on this podcast. Who plays for Iowa State? He was 4 of 13, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He's a forward that passes the ball really, really well. So
Right.
when I'm looking at that second Grizzlies pick, I do wonder if he's one of the names that the Grizzlies would be interested in just because he has really high efficiency numbers and is very productive. And I think he's a Mike Miller guy. I think Mike Miller's his agent.
Okay.
So yeah, interested in him as well. I think that will do it for the college basketball update. But lots of fun games. We're approaching NCAA tournament time. More fun games to watch this week. If you're a depressed Tigers fan, which I get it, there's a lot of them out there right now. Um, and you don't have the Grizzlies to cling to either. Go watch some college basketball. Go watch some of these draft prospects. I promise it'll make you feel a little bit better seeing how good some of these guys are. Um, Before we get out of here, there's more to life than basketball. I have to say, I am excited. I don't know if you're excited, because you're the movie critic and not me. I'm excited for Project Hail Mary to come out this month, movie, because I read the book. And I don't
There
do
you go.
I haven't done a ton of that, but I read the
Right.
book, so
All
now
right.
I'm excited to watch the movie.
So
Your thoughts?
you can be, well, it wasn't as good as the book guy. You can be that guy. I can't be that
Yeah,
guy
I've
ever.
never been that guy in my life, so I'm
Who's
really
your
looking forward to that. I'm probably gonna say that no matter what, so that I sound smart,
right?
which I'm really not that smart. So it'll be good to leave and look. My wife, who it's her birthday today, so happy birthday to her. It would be really good to look at my wife and say, wasn't as good as the book. I'll look really smart in that moment, I'm
There
sure.
you go. Speaking of adaptations, my there's more than life in basketball. I just watched the season finale of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the Game of Thrones show on HBO. It's
Okay,
quite
no
good.
spoilers because I
No
plan on
spoilers.
watching it.
It's quite good, and that got me interested in going back to those books because I read the first two Game of Thrones books like several years ago, and just never. I'm someone who doesn't read a series straight through. My mother will start a series, and no matter how many books is in it, she will read all of them before she touches anything else. I bounce around, so I'd read the first two books years ago and just never read the third. So I'm reading the third one now because the show got me in the mood. So I'm currently reading I think it's just called, is it called A Storm of Swords or whatever the third one is? The green one, the one with the green cover. That's what I'm reading right now.
I also was very excited to watch the both of the U.S. Olympic hockey teams, the men's and the women's, who both won gold and beat arch rival Canada uh, in the Olympic final to win the gold medal, and it was. I enjoy dabbling in the Canada jokes. I know that they're pretty childish, but it's fun. It's fun to play this game because the rest of the world is catching up to us in basketball.
Right,
We've been told that for years and years and years. Like this, I likened it to like how France nearly. I think it was France. I mean, France gave us a little bit of a scare in the last Summer Olympics in basketball. But it's a situation like that where like the United States finally caught up to Canada in terms of that. But I also found myself kind of thinking about basketball in that way a little bit. I know you may not be interested in like the AAU scene, Chris, but I have spent lots of years like around some of that. And I do find it pretty interesting, like the differences between USA Hockey, which I'm not talking about the team, but just like the developmental program in the country seems to be so different than the AAU system.
right.
And I think it was a big credit that they won the gold medal and kind of closed the gap here. over the last few years. It had been 46 years since they won a gold medal. Um, to the system that's in place and the way that they sort of develop the young players. And like, I just found myself comparing it to AAU, where like in USA hockey, there's like I know this because I played hockey growing up, but there's like, and it's obviously changed a lot since I was playing, but like, there's real restrictions on who can be coaching and qualifications and number of games and time when you can travel. And I think that, they've managed that and found a system that works really well. And I kind of wish we could do that in basketball in America because it does kind of feel like AAU to some degree can be a little bit of I'm not saying at the highest levels of AAU, but at certain levels of AAU, it can be a little bit of the Wild West, and you can have just basically anybody coaching the team and kids playing 6 games in one weekend. And um, I don't know why my mind went to basketball in that moment, but it did a little bit, just thinking about that. And so, yeah, I think that was a pretty cool moment to watch them win the gold medal if you're a hockey fan.
Well, I did not watch a single second of the Olympics broadcast, but I too was served Alyssa Liu content on social media, and
Nice.
I too was charmed. So shout out to her.
Yeah, that was really cool too. And there was actually, believe it or not, I think it was the Jazz's radio guy asked a question about her to Coach Hardy. And so that was pretty cool. He answered a long question, and it was just basically about like her story and how she kind of did it her way and how that doesn't necessarily exist in basketball anymore. Like these players don't necessarily have the same level of autonomy that players or athletes in other sports do at this point. So you can go find that interview if you want. I thought he gave a good answer. But yeah, I think that'll do it for us this week. We covered a lot. We're going to be covering a lot of the draft as we move forward here. We'll see what happens with the Grizzlies the rest of this week. And next week, they're going to be headed to Minnesota, Chris. Very exciting times for you. You'll get
Uh,
to, will you get
yeah.
to see Ryan Rupert?
I think will he still be on the 10 day? I think he will still. That might
I
be
think
like
he
the
will be.
the last game of the 10 days. So yeah, I think so.
You might get the finale of Ryan Rupert up in Minnesota. Okay, we'll be back next week to talk more Grizzlies. But for Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.